Tight games with playoff implications. We'll recap all the top stories on this week's Varsity 360 right now. Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Varsity 360's Gridiron Report, our weekly look at the top stories in Fredericksburg area high school football. This is the October 20th, 2014 installment. My name is Mark Coleman from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network. So happy that you found us and happy to be partnered with the Freelance Star. We've got a couple of the very talented members from the FLS Varsity team here with me this week. We have sports reporter Nathan Warters. Nathan, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Mark.
And we have assistant sports editor Justin Rice. Mr. Rice, how are you, sir?
Welcome back, Mark. We're glad to have you.
Yes, I'm sure of that. An exciting time, some very close matches in football around the area this past week. Why don't we jump right into it? A game that started out, it was a tale of two halves, really. Mountain View meeting Brook Point. Mountain View winning this game 21-14. The halftime score was 21-0. Brook Point put together a second half rally that fell just short. Pretty exciting game there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. You know, Brook Point I think has been playing a little better lately against some opponents, and Mountain View is a team that's sort of been up and down. And these two teams are right in the mix with each other, fighting for that playoff spot, or fighting for positioning probably in the lower half of the 5A North at least. So that it came out close didn't surprise me at all.
I don't think Mountain View's going with any kind of flashiness at this point. They're keeping the ball on the ground, you know, trying to conserve and hold those leads. And this is kind of the elixir that they've had the last couple of weeks, where they just run it with Burris and let their defense do the rest. And I think that's what happened in this game as well. Yeah.
Burris with 74 yards on the ground. He passed the ball quite a bit, more than I believe that they have, at least of late. 17 completions out of 32 attempts, 165 yards and 2 scores passing. But really, Elijah Burris is the big story there on the offense for Mountain View.
It is. They also have their tailback, Collison Coffey, who almost went for 100, which is, you know, a good sign for them. I think they mixed it up really well. They did throw it a lot, but they kept it on the ground as well. This was a good sign for their offense, I think.
So Mountain View goes to 3-4. Brook Point drops to 3-5. What does this mean for their playoff chances here, Justin?
Well, I think they both are in a position where they sort of control their own destiny. If they win some games, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be in. I think either team could still theoretically play their way, maybe even into the top 8, where you're at home in the first round. The problem is for Brook Point, that involves beating Massaponax. The Blackhawks also have North Stafford, who they've lost to once this year, but I think this is a different North Stafford team maybe than at that point in the season. You know, but if Brook Point off this week, and then if they were to win those 2 games, I think they got a good chance to be in the top 5. I think more realistically, you know, they're going to be somewhere between 11 to 16. They're going to be on the road against a pretty highly seeded team and so on. So I think Mountain View might be in a little better shape. They've still got Forge this week. They've got Riverbend. They've got Stafford. Riverbend and Stafford, both 6A teams, both good points to be scored there in the power point standings. Colonial Forge is a tough road this week, but I think Mountain View can certainly expect to and hope to and, strive to give them a game, And if you score a win, if you score 3 wins, I think Mountain View ends up at home in the first round of the playoffs. I think if you score 2 wins, you're going to be right on the 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. And I think if you just win 1, you're going to be 12 to 16, something like that, on the road against a big underdog in the first round.
Great. Well, it was a special night at North Stafford High School on Friday. The Wolverines held their dedication ceremonies, officially naming the stadium A.J. Sly Memorial Stadium. Clearly, emotions running high as North Stafford hosted Riverbend in a Commonwealth District matchup. Riverbend took the opening kickoff and marched 75 yards on 12 plays, capped by a Matt Felton 5-yard touchdown run. Felton took several snaps at quarterback on this drive. 2-point conversion puts Bend ahead 8-0. North responds after a nice kick return, sets them up in Bear territory. On 4th down, Jimmy Edwards buys some time, and he finds Guy Keith for 29 yards and the score. 8-7 Riverbend. Riverbend would carry a 15-7 lead into halftime. Third quarter now, Riverbend with the ball and Felton at quarterback. That's Jordan DeMarco at the bottom of the screen, split wide. Felton with the great fake to the running back, and he has a reservation for 6. and the extra point makes it 22-7 Riverbend. Orlando Jones was a frequent backfield mate for Felton. Here OJ takes the handoff, and he rumbles 37 yards. North Stafford now having to defend multiple runners in the backfield. That will come into play as the game wears on. Felton takes the snap. He will find a seam on the left sideline, and he is gone. 29 yards on this run. He will finish with 122 on the night and 3 touchdowns. North fights back. Jimmy Edwards with a pass over the middle. Beautiful catch by his wideout. Edwards with the jump ball into the end zone, and Jacob Bishonik hauls it in for the score. Bishonik with 7 catches for 88 yards on the night. Score now is closed to 29-14. The fourth quarter was the Orlando Jones show. Jones with a 1-yard plunge for the score, his second of the night. Jones racks up 192 yards on 16 carries and 2 scores. It is his best night as a Bear. Riverbend pulls off the victory. Final 34-14. I believe the final was 37-14. Riverbend over North Stafford. A wonderful night running the ball. Felton and Jones both alike. 2 surprise names. We haven't heard too much about these kids.
I was talking to Coach DeMarco for the Player of the Week story, because Orlando Jones was our Player of the Week, and he said that they're just so deep, and Orlando's been kind of buried on the depth chart. They've had a few injuries here. Zach Sims, their top tailback, was playing in the slot in this game. They were kind of marched out, kind of a wildcat look there with Felton. So they seem to be loaded with weapons here. And when you got guys like Felton and Jones stepping up that hadn't had big games like that all year, that bodes pretty well for their chances there.
A wide open playbook. They're sort of playing, not sort of, they're playing for their playoff lives here, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think Riverbend has much room to spare. I think you and I could maybe debate this, whether or not Riverbend needs to go 3 for 3 or 2 for 3. And a lot of it's going to depend on the guys they're chasing. They're going to be chasing Varina. They're going to be chasing James River, teams like that, Woodbridge, and they need those teams to take a step back. I look at Varina's schedule. They still have Highland Springs. I think that's a game that you probably like Highland Springs in. But then they have Hanover, which is a game they can win. Glen Allen, which is a game you certainly like Varina to win. So they got a good shot to win at least 2 out of 3. I think you look at Woodbridge. Woodbridge has Potomac, Forest Park left, Garfield left. I think you like Woodbridge there against Potomac. You like him against Garfield. Forest Park, I think, is maybe a toss-up, but that's certainly a game Woodbridge can win. So Riverbend is in a situation, I think, they certainly need to win 2 games. I think they probably need to win 3 games.
And that's part of the fun of sports for me. I mean, we sitting here and trying to pick wins in the future. I mean, I had Cleveland beating Jacksonville in my pool this past week. Seattle beating St. Louis, and it was a rough week for me, quite honestly. But we'll talk about that off camera. These games still have to be played, but you're right. Riverbend is going to have to turn it on. They're going to have to. They're essentially playing playoff games now. Meanwhile, North Stafford is fighting as well. They have a little bit easier path, but they're looking at a road game.
I think likely. Well, the good news is North Stafford is 4-4. They have 2 games left. One of those is this week against Massaponax. You certainly like Massaponax in that game. Of course, it wouldn't be the biggest upset of all time if North Stafford were to go and play well and beat the Panthers. But still, you like Massaponax there. You probably, maybe the North Stafford Brook Point game is a toss-up. North has beaten them already, but as we just said a few minutes ago, this is a different North Stafford team maybe than at the beginning of the year because of the injuries.
Right.
So, North Stafford's got a good shot. They're already in better shape than most of these teams. They're in the top 8 right now. To be at home in the first week, you certainly got to. If you look at a 5-5 record, you're going to be right on the bubble of being in that top 8. Maybe you're on the road against a 7 or an 8 seed. Maybe you're at home against a 9 or a 10 seed. A lot depends on this week. The good news is a loss to Massaponax. Massaponax has so many wins, doesn't hurt you that bad.
Yeah. Well, Riverbend with the 37-14 victory over North Stafford. Meanwhile, breaking into the top 5, number 4, James Monroe, they had a fight on their hands. It went down to close to the last play of the game. It was near the end, at least, before this game was decided. They pull off the 35-34 victory over Chancellor. I was watching the scores. Actually, I was watching your Twitter feeds as this was going on, and I could not believe what I was seeing here. This was a much closer game than I expected.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I think Chancellor's demonstrated in the last couple of weeks they've got weapons. Jason Brown, their quarterback, is kind of quietly having a really, really nice season. He was 13 of 27, 188 yards, 4 touchdowns this week. that doesn't surprise me at all that Chancellor gives JM a game.
Yeah, and I think the kicking game was where the difference was made there in the second half. I think Chancellor made some mistakes there. I've seen that a lot this year. I mean, you see one or two mistakes, snap over the head, a block punt. It changes the complexion of the game, and that obviously is what happened in this one. I mean, Chancellor was up fairly big, I believe, and JM was able to come back by virtue of those mistakes.
A couple of big nights also. The opposing quarterback, Jay Scroggins from JM, 14 of 28, 192 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He also carried the ball 12 times for 77 yards. On the Chancellor side, Quincy Banks, 4 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. He's a big target there for Brown.
Yeah, and they've been putting up points. And the Chancellor is still really, really young. I think that when you look ahead to next year and the year after, I think Chancellor's a team you put a little star by. I think they've certainly demonstrated some of these sophomores that played as freshmen are going to be really experienced juniors next year. They're going to know what's coming. They're going to hopefully learn the lessons and worked out hard. And I think Chancellor has shown that they're going to be a team to reckon with. And they're not maybe quite done this year. They have Spotsy, they have King George. Those are 2 games that you think they can win. I think certainly King George is going to give them a test, and Spotsy, maybe comes up and has their best week of the year. And Chancellor has Courtland, which is a rivalry game. Chancellor wins 2 of those. I don't think that's enough. I think they're outside. Chancellor wins 3 of those. I think they're in.
Well, sure. That would be a tall order, but certainly it would be nice to be able to see. I saw these kids in their first game of the season against Riverbend, and I think I said after that one, this team is better than they were last year, and they're going to get better. They are still very young. I agree with that entirely. Would be something if they got a little bit of even just a single game of playoff experience to see what they could turn into next year. This is a team that is going to be good. They are pretty good right now. They're going to be good soon,
we can debate later the value of being the 16 seed, having to go play the 1 seed.
Sure, I bet you that they'd rather be 16 than 17, though.
I think you're probably right.
I think so. Now, JM, meanwhile, have they secured a spot yet?
It's not technically locked up. It's a safe bet though. They're third. Kettle Run is 4th. The 2 teams are close. The encouraging thing for Kettle Run for JM there is Kettle Run has a really tough schedule left, including the games against Eastern View. I think there's a chance Kettle Run's looking at 2 more losses, and for JM, I think the game you look at is of course the Courtland game. Is going to be big for points wise if JM is in the top 4. So JM loses to Courtland, they're probably still in the top 4. The only chance I think JM has a chance, the only way JM has a chance to move higher than where they are now, 3rd, probably got to beat the Cougars.
Okay. Well, number 1 in the Fredericksburg Power Poll, Massaponax had a fight on their hands against Stafford. This game was 7-6 at halftime. Massaponax was able to pull this one off 35-12, but they had some of these situations last year where they were close at half before they poured it on. Any concerns here?
No, don't even want to talk about it. Massaponax has earned maybe a less than great performance. They've played great. They're clearly the area's best team at this point. They're 8-0. I really like them in their last 2 games. North Stafford, Brook Point. They're going to need Tuscarora to lose in order to jump them and be the number 1 seed in the 5A North. Otherwise, I think Massaponax wins out. I think Massaponax is the 2 seed in the 5A North and is hosting a home game and get to the playoffs and see what happens.
Okay. Bo Fields with the big game for Massaponax, although not the overwhelming games, I guess, that we've seen from this crew. Fields with 20 carries, 122 yards. C.J. Lewis with 2 touchdowns rushing the ball, 9 carries total for 87 yards. Sort of just a workmanlike effort. Bendon had a good second half for the team. Lots of weapons, strong team.
It's 35-12.
35-12. Yeah. Massaponax goes to 8-0. Stafford, meanwhile, falls to 1-6 on the season. Meanwhile, number 4, Eastern View, with a 35-0 drubbing of Fauquier. Kendrick Kuby with 18 carries, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns running.
Terrible game. What happened to him this week?
Only 115.
Yards.
I know
He's got
it
to
feels.
be concerned.
I believe he's hurt. I think that's what I read. He's been kind of nicked up there, but still, I think he played a half, got 115 and 3. That's a pretty good game there.
Pretty good half there. Yeah,
not bad.
No doubt.
To get a shutout though for Eastern View, it's a big win for them. I mean, that's the 2nd shutout of the year, I believe. They're rolling right now heading into this Liberty game.
Absolutely, they're building some good momentum. 7-0 on the season. They've got Liberty coming up. Josh Stallings did have a big game for Eastern View as well. 11 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown rushing. He also completed 5 of 11 passes and a TD. for Eastern View. So they're another strong team there.
They're 7-0, and now here we go. I think the biggest matchup of the regular season against the best team they're going to play their entire regular season, Liberty. Liberty has a win against Mountain View already this year. In fact, kind of dominated the Wildcats even. So we know Liberty is a legitimate team, and this is a huge one at the top of the 4A North. This is a big, big, big game.
Yeah, Liberty the only team to beat Eastern View in the regular season last year, so I'm sure Eastern View's got that in the back of their minds heading into this week of preparation.
Yeah.
Well, in other games around the area, number 2 Courtland with a big 69-13 victory over Caroline. Fellas, I think we've heard this story before. 3 big running days from this Cougar backfield.
Yeah, 142 from Green, 121 from Jenkins, 121 from Cheatham. They all score touchdowns. Courtland runs a fake punt, for goodness sake. The Cougars are rolling. They're going to get JM at the end of the regular season. Maybe Chancellor gives them a game. We'll see. We just talked about that. And then you're going to get in the postseason and see how Courtland does. Probably a top 4 team in the 4A North.
Okay. Well, Essex and Colonial Beach tangled in a good one out on the northern neck. Essex pulls off the 28-20 victory. Lamar Lucas with 99 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Valiant effort by the Drifters.
Yeah, the depth and the size and so on and the problems they face in that. They're always going to be an underdog against these powerhouse teams from the 1A East. But I think they went toe-to-toe with Essex and have every reason to be proud of that one. You're still a top 8 playoff team. You're still going to be home at least one round, and then you're going to get in the playoffs and see what happens.
There you go. King George and Spotsylvania, a matchup of a pretty good rivalry here. King George pulls off the 17-6 victory. Spotsy was not quite able to pull it out. Garrett Johnson, 16 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown rushing, but the Knights come up short in this game.
King George not done yet.
Not done yet.
Jordan Alley also, need to mention him. He had a touchdown rushing and receiving. That kid I think he's a star in the making.
Yeah, with some winnable games. The Foxes right now, they're in right now, and they have some winnable games left that they need to win. Again, we keep going back to Chancellor King George game, going to be a big important game, I think, when we get to that week. I think any games involving those bubble teams against other bubble teams, those are big games. Someone's got to win them. Somebody's going to score power points. King George Chancellor's a big one to look forward to, I think.
There you go. Meanwhile, Kettle Run with a 21-15 victory over Culpeper. Jeremy Robson from Culpeper, 15 for 36 passing, 257 yards. Eli Marks caught 4 of those for 138 yards. But the Blue Devils just not quite able to pull it out.
Culpeper was ahead for a while in this one, and Kettle Run's a perennial playoff team. Culpeper's a feisty team. They didn't get the win here, but they've been competitive in pretty much every game. So I think they're just kind of moving towards that next step of actually finishing off games like this.
They don't make the playoffs. There's going to be some close wins, close losses this year. I know they're going to look back where if they do not make the playoffs, it'll have come down to any one of several close games that they did lose. It's going to come down to one of those.
Painful.
Yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Louisa with a big victory, 48-16 over Fluvanna. Louisa with a pretty big turnaround from last year. Yeah, congratulations to them. Yeah. And Orange, unfortunately, falls to Powhatan, a strong team there, 56-6 was the final score, I believe. A big game on Saturday in the for independent schools. Fredericksburg Christian met Sidwell Friends and pulled off the 27-8 victory. James PLOURDE for FCS, 98 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Blair Lawson, 95 yards rushing and a touchdown. That's a pretty balanced rushing attack there. FCS is 7-0 on the season and looking awfully strong.
Looking very strong.
Yeah, these guys are battle tested. I mean, they've beaten some really good teams. So this is a nice role for them right now.
Absolutely. Sitting atop the Division III there. Well, of course, as the season draws to a close, the games get that much bigger. We've got some good games around the area this week, and it starts with Colonial Forge meeting Mountain View.
Yeah, this is a big matchup. Last year, Mountain View actually pulled out the win. I think it was their first win. It might have been their first win all time against Forge. It was the first win in a while over Forge. Forge has won 3 straight this year. I think they're in pretty good shape. Mountain View's won 2 of 3. Good matchup. It should be a pretty exciting, close game, I would say.
Does Mountain View, do they move the ball on the Colonial Forge defense?
I think they can. It's going to be hard. Colonial Forge's defense has really kind of come together. I think they're playing a lot more fundamentally sound, but it's not like Mountain View's lacking in playmakers. I think Burris and some of the young receivers they have. Mountain View's a really young football team, and I think they've kind of come of age. Forge has got a lot of youth too, so it's 2 teams that are playing well right now, and I think Mountain View's got a chance to to move against Colonial Forge.
Okay. Another matchup, Massaponax will be visiting North Stafford.
The question is when does North Stafford get all these guys back? I mean, they've been struggling recently, but they're playing. The other day against Colonial Forge, it's 2 weeks ago. I was talking to Coach Mangano afterwards, and all their tailbacks are injured. They're trying to get their receivers healthy. It just seems like they just got a long list of guys that are injured right now. So if they get their guys back, they're a very competitive team. I think they could give Massaponax a game. The question is who's back and who's not. So that's a big question for this contest.
The approach to throw the ball a lot, especially short throws. I mean, the traditional way to beat a triple option offense is ball control, right? I mean, that's what triple option wants to do, is to try to control the ball. So if you can beat them in terms of time of possession, then you might have a chance. But I don't know that things are stacking up so well for North Stafford in that regard.
Well, they just need to have the runners. I mean, they've had a couple of games this year. I believe JM was that way, where they held the ball, kept the ball on the ground. They've had a couple really big rushing games prior to Briarwoods when everybody got hurt.
Right.
They've got the horses. They've got the guys that can do it. They're just all hurt right now. So that's, like I said, that's the big question at this point.
And I think don't discount North Stafford. They're a team that is experienced with Massaponax. Last year, playoffs, North Stafford comes out and wins that game. I think defends the triple option pretty as well as maybe anybody did last year. So I don't think you can discount that.
Well, and a good opportunity for Massaponax to play what is very likely a playoff team and start to prepare themselves for the playoff push. That you've got to believe that Coach Ludden is fighting the kids to not be looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I
would think so.
Challenging with the game.
I like how Massaponax schedule's set up. They have a late bye. They have a bye next week. So it's not the bye the last week of the season, and then you got to be sharp for the playoffs. You get the bye, then you get another game, and then let's go to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, Courtland will be visiting King George. The Foxes have what it takes to hold up against the Cougars, you think?
There will be absolutely no running of the ball in this game. Neither team will hand the ball off ever, not once.
I think you might be joking about that one.
Yeah, this is going to be a good, strong running game. King George has just got to. I think they got to keep it close. They got to be able to use the running game, sort of try to grind it out with Courtland. And it would certainly be an upset for King George to win, but gosh, it would be a huge upset for them, and to get them from the playoff bubble into the playoffs securely. If you can pull off an upset against Courtland, but I think Courtland's going to probably have something to say about that.
What's the over/under on passes thrown in this game?
I'm going to go 5.
I was thinking
I'm going to go 5.
5.5.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll take the under.
Okay. How many gadget plays do you think that there might be? I have a feeling that King George might throw out some gadget plays, maybe some fake returns or something like that.
Well, we'll see. Courtland's certainly not been shy with those this year.
Right.
Yeah.
A little turnabout is fair play. And finally, we have Spotsylvania meeting Chancellor in a Spotsy County rivalry matchup here. We've talked about Chancellor. The gateway to the playoffs seems to run through Chancellor.
It sort of does in a bizarre way. Whether or not the Chargers can do enough themselves, I don't know. It's going to be really, really close. But, it starts with winning a game you should win. And you just played JM in a 1-point game. You lost. It's a heartbreaker. But you really feel like Chancellor's better than Spotsylvania. And you really think, despite the records that are even, you really think this is a chance for Chancellor to come out and win a game and set that stage where their last 2 games, Courtland and King George, become very meaningful.
Yeah. Well, it's late October, mid-October, late October, and the playoffs are looming.
No playoff implications. One of the best rivalries in the area is also this Friday, Louisa and Orange. Louisa at Orange. Big rivalry game. You definitely like Louisa in that game, but it's certainly one where the communities both still have a vigorous dislike for each other, at least when it comes to the football field. So that's going to be a good one to go to on Friday, I think. A vigorous dislike.
A vigorous dislike. He's a writer, can you tell? You're an editor now. You're not even a writer.
Well, what do you do?
You work with words, though, right?
Fighting words.
You use words.
Vigorous dislike. Does that describe this table right now? No.
I think we need a food sponsor is what we need. We need to do this live before a studio audience.
Whoever
Wouldn't
can
that be
deliver
fun?
at this point.
That would be fun. That would be fun. It is always fun chatting with these good folks. I certainly appreciate the time. Busy folks from the Freelance Star, FLS Varsity, Nathan Warters, Justin Rice. It's been fun tonight, fellas. Memorable.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Remember that you can have your athletic director or head coach email me, mark@v2sn, or tweet me. I'm at Mark Coleman, V2SN, with your game highlights. We can make it very easily for you. We do have access to Huddle, and we can do the editing of video. Just let me know, have them contact me, and we can make that work. Love to have the highlight videos in our Varsity 360 shows. That'll do it for this week's episode. Hope that you join us next week, and we'll try to do this a little bit better. My name is Mark Coleman from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network. Thanks for watching, everyone.